chimp.
They will lose.
Okay, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba are not the same as fucking Mexico and Colombia and Argentina. You fucking retard. Just how white countries, just how European countries, literally disagree with each other. So do the fucking Latinos. You mentioned pariah states, you fucking retard.
They don't even procreate.
Who's immigrating to Venezuela, you fucking monkey? Nobody.
They're coming here to kill white women.
Nobody. Venezuelans are leaving Venezuela. Cubans are leaving Cuba. Nicaraguans are leaving Nicaragua. Why?
By Venezuela.
Why? The majority of Latin American countries are against those countries. You stupid motherfucker. You dumbass motherfucker.
That's what you hear about.
Low IQ, chimp-brained. You're fucking stupid, dude.
Look at all the white victims ever since 2023.
There's nobody. See, this monkey needs to be in a zoo. If you know what? I'll give Cuba their props. You would be in a prison cell, okay, talking to yourself in a straitjacket if you lived in Cuba, because you act like a monkey.
Pepe, can we no monkey. We get your point.
No, this motherfucker is a pinche changuito. Fuck this maete.
No monkey language.
Hold on. One mic on Doctor. He got a low mic. First of all, you gotta fix it.
Why did blacks die disproportionately from COVID-19 and got replaced by Venezuelans?
Basically, why do they call y'all
I'm just describing to all of you my love for Jewish music, especially when it comes to the line. It really has.
Why y'all the only race that went down in population?
No, all white Americans went down in population too.
White Americans went down too, but so did the black people too.
Yeah, I know, because the native-born Americans, white and black, they both went down. Okay, yo.
Doctor, you got a bad mic, bro. You gotta either get a job.
This is a free
Okay, just work like a
consultation,
Mexican.
which,
Ask him
you know,
all along.
if you don't
He
do the
ain't
heavy
heard that
lifting,
shit.
it's never gonna happen. Nobody else is gonna do it. Maybe Tyler would do it. Like, I don't know why Tyler.
Hi, I'm Governor J.B. Pritzker from Illinois.
No,
I'm
you
here
see,
at
here's
the
the thing.
Travis County Democrats annual
they're not
gala.
about...
And standing here with State Representative James Tallarico.
I want to work
Really
hard.
honored to be here, Representative.
There's going to be some sweat that's involved with me getting
we're
your
going
money.
to turn Texas blue
But
in
you motherfuckers are too
2026.
lazy.
We've got all
Here's
kinds of
the thing.
opportunity here.
Latinos,
and I want to help rev up the
okay, their
troops
work
just like you do on a
ethic,
regular basis.
their
Thank you.
values.
Honored that
Here's
you're
the
here.
thing. No.
Fighters,
The blacks in the United States, and even the whites to an extent. Okay, I'm being honest. There's a work. They value work and working hard, and it's something. And they're you know what it is? They're too embarrassed to ask for a handout.
That's a fact.
It makes them seem like they're bitches. They need help. They're pitiful little individuals who need to be saved. But they're macho. That's machismo in the Latin culture. And it's just like, I'm a strong man. I take care of my family. I do what I need to do. And it's not going to be through a handout. It's going to be through working hard. And then you people, you wonder why are these motherfuckers coming here replacing you guys, literally? Okay, and you're no, hold on a second. Why are they doing better than black people in the United States? Because they don't whine like little bitches, and they're willing to work for what they get, and not ask for a handout, and then throw temper tantrums and burn shit and commit crimes. Yep, no, that's what you people do.
No, that's what
they work hard.
And that's crazy too. Pepe, I'm a what you call them, what you said. That's why blacks are doing worse than they ever before in America.
Yeah, because Latinos come here and
no
work
one
harder
likes
than
them.
you people. That's
Not only
amazing.
that, no one likes them. It seems like
It seems like you don't like
them now.
it seems like you don't like equality. In other words, when you have to actually compete with other people and Latinos, smoke your ass, you guys get angry. That's not like that sounds like a you problem.
Left your country. You're a coward. I want to hear that.
What side you on, Chico?
What's up,
Both sides?
No, I'm here. I'm fact checking.
Y'all come on here.
No, I mean the blacks need to learn from the Latinos.
That's a fact, baby.
But if I had a choice, I'm gonna be honest. If I had a choice, I would definitely take Pepe's side or white people's side over blacks. I'm gonna tell you why. You can't trust black people.
¿Por qué tú hablando español, amigo? ¿Por qué?
I'm just gonna be honest. I lean towards the white folks. I lean towards the blacks, because they a hot mess. Black people, they kind of,
Yo,
and plus,
Hey, bro.
they the biggest Trump supporters, man. Trust me, black people love Trump more than white people.
I got beans in the back.
Which is so weird too. Like times have changed. Like,
You know what? The white community, what they've always done, kind of like the Latino community. So if you're a Latino man and you're not willing to work, they're very. In other words, man is the protector, the provider. You gotta work for what you get. If you're not willing to do that, the minimum expectation as a man, you're a bitch, you're a bum, you're a nobody. White men, rather similar. But then the default for blacks in the United States is like, oh, it's because Whitey owed you. He owed you something. Oh, motherfucker, if Whitey didn't do this to you, motherfucker, you'd be rich. Oh, shit, them goddamn crackers. That's what you guys do. And that is a problem. So in other words, you guys need to be less bitch-made and be more willing to be men. Okay, unfortunately, Latinos are way more manly. They're way more manly than black men, by a long shot.
Bro.
At least today. I mean, black men in the 1940s were probably not nearly as bitch-made as you people, but
That's it. Total. Now,
it's not anecdotal.
We can barely hear
You
you.
gotta get some wires or get a job. Bro.
is your
Government don't offer.
Yes, I'm American, motherfucker. And first of all, yes, they are. In fact, the person with my last name came here to the United States. Shut your fucking mouth, you fucking monkey. My parents came here from the United States in 1605, 14 years before any of you black people came here as fucking slaves. I am more foundational than you, motherfucker. And if we're gonna talk about this, there's no such thing as a foundational black American, you fucking chimp. No, you motherfuckers literally didn't found anything. You had to be a free person, okay, a pioneer, somebody that came here to literally be able to do whatever you want. Now, there were black people that came here as farm equipment. They sure as fuck didn't found the country. The motherfuckers that owned them were part of the founding of the country. Unfortunately, I'm not saying I like slavery. You fucking dipshit, I'm way louder than you. This is the funny part. Now, if we look at who founded this country, it was one specific group of white people. It was white Anglo-Saxon Protestants that came from the British Isles, and they did not allow women to vote. They did not allow non-white people to vote. Okay, they founded this country. All of our founding fathers were white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. Who founded our country? Was it black people? Nope. They weren't even given a fucking say. In fact, they weren't even allowed to vote on it. So you motherfuckers are not foundational in anything. There's no such thing as a foundational black American. You fucking ape. And when it comes to Latinos, they actually ran parts of this country before black slaves were ever fucking, ever came here. We can look in the 1500s. When the first black people in Arizona in the 1500s, before an African-American slave came here, you had a black man that literally came here as part of a conquest.
Hold on, give him 30 seconds. Let's see what he got to say. 30 seconds.
In your DNA, because your parents believe, which makes you a coward too, by default. The sins of the father. You a fucking coward. And no, I don't want no fucking refried beans and no tortillas, bitch.
Tortilla.
Tortillas, you fucking monkey.
Yeah, we can barely hear you, Doctor.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Doctor. Like, you're losing your voice for no reason, bro.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is that we can look at Louisiana, we can look at Florida, we can look at New Mexico, we can look at California, we can look at Arizona. All of these were literally states inhabited by Latin people. Before the conquest, before any slaves came here, the foundation of America, literally. Now hold on a second. Latinos literally had a larger portion, or part, I should say, when it comes to founding America, than black people. That's not subjective. That is literally fucking an opinion. That is literally fucking it's literally objective. If you look at all throughout the West, look throughout the West and the Southeast, Spaniards, you fucking retard.
Look at your mama. Where she at? Where your sister?
I know, that's what you're gonna do. Oh, okay, like a typical black person. It's mud dick, I beat your ass. I give your girlfriend, your mom, bigger dick, and I still beat your ass. That's what you guys do. Amazing.
With violence, see, there you go, trying to be a victim.
Yeah, but you're threatening with my big black dick. Amazing. But your big black dick, but let's talk about that big black dick. Let's talk about that big black dick. It's way more likely to give you syphilis, chlamydia, gonorrhea, AIDS, genital warts, and herpes. Okay, it's literally a dangerous disease dick.
Wow, what combination.
Your dick is dirty. You're a dirty dick. You're a dirty dick myopte.
You got Pepe fuming, bro. You gonna hear that nigga breathe?
Yo, what is he breathing so long?
Okay, Chanquito, go ahead, say.
That's a fact. Favor the whites, build America. That's
I'm
a
ahead of
fact.
this man, bro. I don't know, bro.
The white, but no, let's hold on a second, because going back to the 1500s, okay, Latinos were here in the United States. We're talking a whole fucking it's a little over 100 years.
With the cap.
You had Latinos here in the United States that founded the United States. I mean, of course, I won't say founded the United States, but they were part of the colonies. But you had Latinos that were here in the United States longer than black people. Okay, the FBAs cannot claim, or you cannot claim that you've been here longer. And if we're gonna really talk about this, the majority of Latinos in the United States are literally mestizo. Or some of them they have, especially if you talk about the Caribbean Latinos, they have some African admixture. But we're literally talking about a group of people, the Spaniards, that came here in the 1400s, but the bulk of them in the 15 and 1600s, before black people in 1619. Okay, they are a mix of not only the first Europeans that showed up here before black people, the transatlantic slave trade, but they're mixed with the indigenous people that have been here for thousands of years prior. Like they're literally more American than you fucking people. They can claim indigeneity way more than you fucking people. You fucking chimps. You got BTFO'd.
Brother Doc. Listen, there's a Pepe. I just want to ask you a question, brother. There's some conflation that you're doing. Now,
You guys were not the original Americans. You were not the original blacks. You were none of that.
Hey, I hear you. You got the high tech equipment, and you just over talking, but you haven't sourced anything about what you're saying. So now, listen, this is to the point of
fucking ass.
Right.
Hold on,
and so now
The Spanish literally came here.
Hold on.
1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
Pepe, listen, brother. Listen. I'm just going to use basic logic, brother, because this is the conflation you're doing. By what you're doing, you're naming geographic. So by your very logic, black people been on the earth longer. So we just talking about the earth. What year was the United States of America founded? And once you answer that question, that's why we are foundational black Americans. This land was not called America 1,000 years ago. So now that we got that out of the way, or Nigeria, what didn't get called Nigeria until like 1960. You see where we're going? Mexico wasn't always called Mexico. So now when we say foundational black Americas, because clearly when you go through this or that, you're talking about conquest. Now, and we still talking about conquest. And what year did the United States of America get founded, and were there black people here that done such a thing here when America got founded?
Alright, Pepe, you can talk, bro.
Okay, so you're asking the exact year when the United States proper was founded?
He asked you, let's just put it in layman's terms, you stupid.
No, Doc.
No, hold on a second. Okay, so the country itself, I just want to be clear, the country itself, because of course you had the people that came here as pioneers and settler colonialists, and even conquerors. When it came to the Spanish, it was 1776 is when they became.
Game, set, and match. So you naming geographical is immaterial to who was here there. There was no United States of America before 1776, but yet black people been here, according to what you said out of your mouth, since the 1600s, according to y'all, 1619. So thus, it wasn't in 1619. It wasn't called America. It wasn't no America. Thus, we are foundational black Americans. That's the reason why we
Here's the amazing part. Here's where your logic gets used against you. Is that the United States of America, we're using words that are English. And we're using, when it comes to the territories that the Spanish had occupied, they're Spanish, i.e. European, and the people who came here and the people that were allowed to vote, they were all European. When it came to everything here, the language you were speaking, we're not speaking, we're not speaking that, we're not speaking, anything other than European languages on the American continents. You have some Native American, but hold on a second. But you're saying, but foundationally, I understand. You guys have to understand that, and I'm not saying this was a good thing. I'm really not. I'm being sincere when I say this. You guys were like John Deere tractors that were bought by white people, whether they were English, Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, and you guys were literally, that's what you guys were looked at, and you were bred to be functioning farm equipment, not to be Americans. I mean, and you have to look at it like this: before you guys were even allowed to be considered citizens, the foundation of America, literally a couple hundred years of it, you guys were not seen as one of us, or you were seen as literally fucking functioning human tools that you had to feed and take care of. And
Doc, let them go. We ain't gonna get gaslit. Let them.
Yeah, but you guys were not foundational to anything that was American.
Well, listen.
Hold on. I'll end there.
Nah, see, listen. The only way that they can win is to
disprove anything. You said something that was common sense that we both agreed about because it was a logical fact. Yes, before 1776, it didn't exist. But once again, we can look at 1776 when the country was founded. We all know that only white people were in charge, and in fact, white men. And so, you know, you didn't disprove anything I said.
Pepe, listening is a skill. It is not, I mean, hearing is different from listening. I'm hearing you. You hearing me, you're not listening, but I'm listening to you. Now, the first thing that I said...
Trust me, I've been listening.
You hearing that? Okay, pardon me, I don't want the argument about it. But the point is that you're arguing the different conquest that was transversed back and forth. I've debunked that off the muscle with black people been on the earth longer than you and anybody else. So that notion of foundational, I can take that argument, but I'm not doing that there. So what I was doing was that there was no United States of America in 1775. Though there were still white people here, there was also black people here, and there was also, you know, the mestizos, or, you know, what today is referred to as, you know, Latinos or Hispanics, whichever term that one subscribed to. But the point is that because we were here at the beginning of America, when she made a declaration, that's why we are foundational black Americans.
Yeah, but Corey, there's no, you can't give us a source that the black people were here first, like the first people on this earth. That's not a fact, bro.
And that's the thing, is that when it comes to the out of Africa even the foremost even the foremost experts like David Reich, we can look at Harvard.
Okay, so show
Everybody, I mean, it was just like a few days ago they discovered.
Wait, Pepe.
Hold on a second. They discovered it. Hold on a second. They discovered a group of people that were dating back to 7,000 years ago that are as genetically distantly related to each other as Europeans are to Melanesians and as Africans are to Melanesians. And the reason why that's significant is because to both groups, we're very genetically different from them.
Yeah, there's no proof that the first man was black Negro. That's not true, bro. The first black man was not a Negro.
That is true, bro.
All right, so prove it. So show us. You saying it's true? Show us.
It's a hypothesis. They can't prove it.
It's a hypothesis. You can't. Nobody can prove that, bro. So all that, the black man was the first. No, bro, that's not true. I gotta stop throwing them shits out.
It's a hypothesis on all sides. To be honest, like it's.
Can I respond to it? Now you can't. When I say source it now, I'm finna source it.
Okay, source it.
But y'all just over talking and making yourself right by straw man arguing and confirmation bias.
You were saying it like he was right.
No.
What is a straw man? Hold on, Negro.
Finish and stop interrupting people.
What the fuck is a straw man? What is a straw man argument? I want you to define it.
A straw man argument is when you make an argument that the other party did not make, and you defeat your own argument, and I just put the source in the chat.
No. Be more precise.
Hold on. Stop.
The other party made an argument. Okay, let's say if I straw man you, what did I do? You made an argument, and then what did I do? Okay, no, you literally fucking monkey. You're not giving the real definition of straw man. It's when you make an argument and I tell you that you made a completely different argument.
Hold on, baby.
Pepe, check the link out in the chat.
I'm looking at the link, bro.
Hold on, stop. Hold on. Either one or two things, right? Number one, I don't give a fuck what none of y'all think, and none of y'all give a fuck what I think. But the point is that y'all not making no psychological attack. Y'all know y'all lying. Y'all know y'all gaslighting. But stop it. If you like to listen. It's not true to you. However,
it's not true, bro.
Okay, listen. If you believe that, you believe that. But now, when I said Pepe made no sense, and now if you want to say it's not true, then I should reasonably have an opportunity to quote unquote present my evidence.
Yeah, we want to
racist because I have to listen to, and I don't listen to you. You know, like people like you want to have like dialogue, right? But there's such. Okay, the Dunning-Kruger. Do you know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is? It's okay if you don't. Most people don't. Okay, you don't. It's when people are confident, but
because now we're being disingenuous because you just want to talk and then keep running, but you're not having a dialogue. Now, according to a white scientist and a white scholar, and I can take it further, but y'all not worthy of some of that there, right? Dr. Lee, and they called it Xanthopus. So before y'all run y'all mouth like that now, check out the evidence now. Go and research Dr. Lee, and he's white. And hold on, I just want to highlight that. So that I ain't even brought up the blood sources, but he's white. And so now, the oldest bones on the planet that was found by a white man. And what did he say about it? So don't even check. I ain't even going to give you the black sources. I'm going to give you your own scientists and scholars that saying that the oldest bones that they found, and let alone the oldest civilizations that are on the planet.
And what was her name? Lucy.
When did they originate, and what did your scientists say? Because clearly, all of us is not reading.
The oldest black bones ever found were found in Atlanta.
Bro, I told you the sources in the chat, and I named the source as Dr. Leakey, and I said that he called the bones Xanthopus.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that the pyramids,
You're moving the goalposts. I need you to either acknowledge or debunk.
I acknowledge it by saying that I think you're full of shit, and that
I said acknowledge it or debunk it, but you haven't even researched it. Matter of fact, you never heard of it.
Yeah, no, I have. So anyway, Islamic and the pyramids built by black people. I'm just curious.
You cannot.
No, I'm just I have to do this because I'm willing to bet that you think the ancient Egyptians were black.
Yeah.
And that they built the pyramids.
Well, listen.
Ancient Egyptians were black.
Hold on, wait. Hold on, wait.
They weren't white.
We're not gonna keep moving the goalposts. You have not addressed.
I asked you a question. The reason you won't answer it is you know what your fucking answer is gonna be.
Listen. I presented some evidence that you have yet to address, and I presented a link for it. And until you do that part, there's no need to us to go into question 2, 3, and 4. You white folks are not as smart as y'all believe y'all is. Y'all ego is big.
You is amazing vocabulary. Amazing.
You talking about that video you just posted in the chat? Because that shit was trash, bro. I skimmed through it.
No, it's just a bunch of fucking art, Afrocentric,
I got something for you.
retarded trash.
I ain't even reading it.
He won't answer my question because he knows what his answer is going to be. He believes that the Egyptians, this cultural appropriator that he is, he's going to believe that the blacks were the ancient Egyptians. And of course, when it comes to the real Native Americans, he probably thinks that the real Native Americans were
white people can't even take the sun.
We're black. Amazing. Yeah. We can't take the sun. Okay, we get it. We can't take the sun. Amazing. I got that point. But the real Native Americans were black. The real Jews are black. The original samurais were black. The Chinese were black.
I got something for you.
Yeah, he just said it. Every country on the planet was black. It was founded by blacks. That's all I wanted to say.
White people are dying out. In every country, y'all deaths are higher than y'all births. In every country. Pepe, you know you ain't nowhere near the magic.
Good God.
He's looking for evidence, so I got some evidence.
Okay, post it, man. You keep saying it, post it.
So, this dissertation I got is from Tyrone Lewis Cannon
who is a citizen of Australia. He's a geneticist on dogs, right? But he also does genetic history on humans, right? So he did a little dissertation on malaria. So malaria of the genus Plasmodium was established in the New World at least 15 million years ago. One of the most comprehensive analysis yet done on the ancient history of insect-borne disease concludes for the first time that malaria is not only native to the New World, but it has been present long before humans existed and has evolved through birds and monkeys, right? So mosquitoes carry malaria of the genus Plasmodium, the type that causes human illness, were established in the New World at least 15 million years ago, long before modern humans existed.
Get on ChatGPT.
All right, so
get to the fucking point, bro.
this is not ChatGPT, dumbass. So shut the fuck up and listen. So this information should cause a rethink in relation to how direct-to-consumer genetic testing companies assign so-called sub-Saharan African ancestry. It's currently believed that the Duffy Null allele has a frequency of almost 100% in sub-Saharan Africans, but occurs very infrequently in populations outside of this region, right? So the frequency occurs very infrequently in populations outside of the region of sub-Saharan Africa. So the cinchona, I think it's called, if I'm pronouncing that right, it's the national tree of Peru, right? So they were using this to cure malaria back in Peru, right? So this is around Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador. Shut the fuck up, bro. You guys just want to argue? Look, do you guys just want to argue, or do you want to listen to a scientific study? You asking for evidence, but I'm trying to give you evidence. You keep interrupting. Shut the fuck up.
Bro, make it quick.
Well, let him finish. He's going somewhere, so I think you should let him finish.
See, this is the problem. Y'all don't want to hear this shit.
Come on, bro. You get
when the evidence is presented.
Don't get distracted. Finish out the topic.
So, protection against Plasmodium vivax malaria is conferred by the Duffy Null allele or the Duffy negative antigen, right? So, in 1955, many so-called African Americans were found to be resistant to PVvax malaria in a paper titled Experimental Testing of the Immunity of Negroes to Plasmodium vivax. The so-called Negroes were Americans. The first paragraph in the paper of the study, one of the first observations made about this laboratory was established in 1931, was that American Negroes are relatively insusceptible of Plasmodium vivax, meaning immune to malaria, which was native to America 15 million years ago. Right? So, this is coming from Oregon State University. Analysis reveals malaria, other diseases as ancient, adaptive, and persistent foes. So if African Americans are resistant to malaria, it's safe to say we were the first ones on the planet. That's coming from Oregon State University and Science Daily on November 4, 2011.
So, wow, bro, you made us wait.
That was the dumbest argument I've ever fucking heard.
Hey, let me say one thing. I don't want to argue you down. Let me say this.
If African Americans are immune to
so proud to be Latin American and whites are so proud to be white, why are they sitting in the sun? Why are they sun tanning? Why are they trying to do everything to try to be black, to look black? Answer that question, because I'm.
We got
Why do your bitches wear?
Hold on.
Why do your bitches spend several $100s on white women's and Indian women's hair? Why do you guys end up getting nose jobs? No, you listen. Why do you guys bleach your skin? Why do you do all of that shit? I'm just curious.
Man, you want to be black so bad.
He got a point.
I swear you do. No, you doing shock value, my boy.
But you
Look,
want to
It's not shock value. It's like literally the real thing.
All you motherfuckers want to do is argue, but when facts are presented to you, you don't want to accept the facts.
ChatGPT.
Look at the American Journal of Physical Anthropology in 1983. It literally says the Black Caribs have, what is it called?
Melanin.
They are immune to PV-vax malaria and were chosen by
Yes,
natural
okay,
selection.
so yes, okay. First of all, you're stating something that's obvious. When it comes to black people, when it comes to black, hold on a second.
If it's obvious.
When it comes to black, yeah, okay. When it comes to black people,
hold on. Check the
there's a
dots.
form. No, shut your fucking mouth. When it comes to black people,
Connect the dots, bro.
Yes, I'll connect the dots. I'll connect the dots here. I'll connect the dots here.
Malaria is native to America.
Yeah, I get it. You're running your low IQ mouth. Just shut up. Now, when it comes to black people, in the United States,
Wait, but
we all know.
are not FBA.
When it comes to malaria, when it comes to the malaria that you would see in Africa, which, by the way, your genes, you can look this up.
It's far more.
Okay, the malaria that you get in South America, you're not immune to, okay? Now, your genes do protect you against malaria in Africa, yes.
So what are you
That is what
saying?
you see. This is what I'm saying. And so, if you're trying to make like this connection that somehow you guys you're the original people and then you're tied to all other people.
Calm down.
Why is it that you guys are not immune to the malaria that the Native Americans and the indigenous people of the Americas in South America and in the Caribbean are immune to? And when I say indigenous people, I'm talking about the Taino and so forth. I'm not talking about you fucking black people. So why is that the thing?
Tainos, you know that, right?
Watch your mouth.
You know we Tainos, you know that, right?
Yeah, Taino. So
You know that's black
Can
people,
y'all
right?
be quiet so he
Tainos are not black. No.
Tainos are.
When they were first encountered, they were.
Are you dumb?
When they were first encountered, they're actually described as being a good-looking group of people that were not that dark complected.
That's a
Like
fact.
that's a reality.
Can I just say this? Caribs are Amerindians. You guys gotta make up your mind. FBA, African, because I hear some of the FBA talk, and you guys claim the original people of this land. Then you differentiate yourself and say that you have no African ancestry.
You are the devil.
First of all, you don't know what I have. So let me say this. My family, my mother's side in South America, they are Amerindian mix. So when you say Carib, when you say Arawak, when you say Taino, those are Amerindian people. When you talk about Native Americans, those are people of Serbian descent. Two different groups. Native Americans and Amerindians are two different people. So the only thing that I'm saying before people become sensitive, hold on.
finish.
Before people become sensitive, just be specific on who you're talking about, because there's a lot of mixing up who is who. So be specific when you're making this point. That's all that I'm saying.
Well, sister, can I ask you?
That's it. It's not an argument.
You blacks aren't Amerindian. Quit trying to steal other people's cultures.
So
You're a rebellion, sir.
Bro. Hold on, wait. So how can you tell us who we are? But
I never told you.
Hold on, I ain't finished.
I never told you who you were.
Wait a minute, let me finish.
I'm not answering the question because I never told you who you were.
Hold on.
I never told you who you were.
Listen.
I don't have to listen. You're giving out false information.
You're a mixed person.
So what are you talking about? Listen, if you're FBA is FBA. Amerindian is Amerindian. Those are two different groups of people. So what are you talking about?
No, they're not. That's the same group.
So you're Amerindian. So you're Amerindian. Hold on. So you're Amerindian?
The original Amerindians were black.
Okay, so hold on. So when you say blacks, what are you referring to? Are you referring to African Americans? Are you referring to FBA? What are you referring to? It's nothing to get sensitive about. No one's being disrespectful. It's a simple question. No one's being rude. It's just a simple question. It's a conversation.
Hit the low, and he sold. Blacks are only 12% of the population. There's never been a lot of black people in America. Why you
and then gold started to move up this century, and it's gone straight up for 25 years. It initially went from 270 up to 1900. So for 10 years, it went from 270 to 1900. Then it consolidated those gains. The lowest it got was 1,050 in 2015. So it went from 270 up to 1900. And then from 2011 to 2024, it traded between 1,000 and 2,000. Most of the trading took place around 1,500, 1,600, 1,700, but it went sideways for 13, 14 years. It just broke out last year, and now it's having another leg up that I think is similar, but probably bigger, to the leg up from 2001 to 2011, and so we're going way up. But this is a huge move. Gold has outperformed the S&P 500 this century, even if you factor in the dividend yield. So just holding gold in under your mattress from the last 25 years, if you sold it now, you'd have more money than holding the S&P and collecting those dividends. So so this is a major change, but we still have a long way to go in deflating this fiat bubble, and your people are seeing that in gold. Anyway, look, I got to get going here. It's after midnight.
Peter, can I just get in a quick thing before you go?
Yeah.
Please. Okay, so basically, I don't even know why this whole
work on
Bitcoin
strange
thing,
doctrines, does harm. The master said, you shall teach thee what is understanding to know.
There is no bottom. I mean, nobody knows where the bottom is in like Bitcoin or whatever. I mean, it could go down to $5. Who knows? But like, of course, I'm a silver maxi, so I'm gonna say like, when I buy silver, I'm not worried. Like, where is it gonna go? At some point, it just can't go to zero.
Well, it's not going to go. Look, I don't think silver can get much below 30. I mean, it could. It got into the 29s a week or two ago, but I think at 32.50, your realistic downside in silver is 10%, whereas it can go up 1,000%. I mean, so you don't have a lot of risk, in my opinion, in silver, right? I mean, so
yeah. What I wanted to say is the guys, Silva Dejan and James brought up David Bateman.
What's up, guys? I don't have much to say.
395 tons of silver, and the point is, I think people are just like the market for silver. I think at these prices is so thin that literally I don't even know why people are all into Bitcoin when literally we kind of figured out the world production, yearly production. It would be like 66 other Davids could buy up a year's production. I mean,
look, they're buying Bitcoin because they've been brainwashed, because they're greedy, because they're and because the fact that Bitcoin went up so much, that has clouded people's judgments, right? They and it's like cognitive dissonance. There are people now who are so like emotionally invested in Bitcoin, they've already spent the millions that they're confident they're going to make, and so they can't. It would so destroy their whole worldview to acknowledge that what they believe is not true. Again, it's almost like somebody who is a religious fanatic trying to get them to believe that their God isn't real, and they've already picture their whole afterlife with their God, and you're telling them that that's not real. So they're not going to accept that because it destroys their whole sense of self and everything that they base their life on. So I mean, people are stuck and they're wedded in this cult of Bitcoin, and they're never going to change their minds, no matter what I say. And the fact that they could say, well, Peter, you were saying the same thing when Bitcoin was 100 and when Bitcoin was 1,000. So because I was pointing out this from the beginning, they think that I don't know what I'm talking about just because the bubble got so big. Well, they're just going to learn the hard way. And I know that there's some people that I can't help. But I'm hoping that some people will say, you know what? Maybe the guy's not a total idiot. Maybe there's something to what he's saying. And at a minimum, let me take some chips off the table and do something else. So I don't have an all or nothing bet. But anyway, I gotta keep going.
I completely. Just one last point.
Patrick, you had to get dropped. Mama about a microwave too long, all type of shit. Yeah, that's just absurd.
Yeah, it's the first time I heard what it is.
Putting a girl in a cage is an act. It's not an attraction.
Correct. Despite that threat, that white dude pressed him because ain't nobody else could press him. He was probably the only one in physical condition to maybe have a chance to protect at least his people against that threat.
Who do you mean to protect though? He came
you got
to him.
Somebody who's wilding in your tent amongst your teammates, and you want him to get
No. He came to him and was like, "Yo,
no, Nathan,
come on, you gotta get up on here."
Nathan, look, do you understand that the Carmelo ended up validating the white kid by reacting the way that he reacted? So like, if it's just a dude that's just chilling, like you had nothing but good energy or whatever, like we don't even know what came up, like all the shit that led up to the request for him to leave, right? We don't know any of that. It's gonna be a lot of hearsay. But I do know this, that the moment this man was requested to leave the tent, he had put his hand in his bag and grabbed his knife. That little nigga's wildin'.
Do you know he's a college student and athlete, Jimmy?
What are you talking about?
Carmelo is a 3.7 GPA and captain of a football team and all that shit.
Carmelo? What does that matter? What does that matter?
Because he wasn't in
Why does that matter? I was an honor student. I was an athlete. I went to the best university. I went to one of the best universities. So what? So what?
But you gotta admit though, for me, I look at it like this: if my goal is to get home, if a dude, anyone put their hands in their bag, I'm not gonna approach him. That's it. Because that's my goal, to be able to get home. Like that ain't worth it,
How do you get home stabbing white kids in their chest? How do you get home? How do you get home doing that? How do you get home? Do you understand? You just gave your life away. So Carmelo Anthony, so the white kid lost his life, but Carmelo Anthony ends up the biggest loser in the situation.
I don't know. I think the biggest loser is the one that's 6 feet under.
So Carmelo is the one that ended up losing more than the white kid. The white kid is dead.
He isn't in jail. He's not harmed.
It doesn't matter.
He's gonna get out scot-free, to be honest.
His name goes on a resume. Like, literally, he's done. He's done. His kids can't even say that's my father. He's done. Like, that kid, he's a leper. Now, in America, he lives in Texas. He's a leper. I wouldn't fuck with this kid. I think the kid's a coward. I wouldn't fuck with his children. Do you understand? Like,
he's gonna be able to get out.
I think you're doing the most for Steve.
I'm not doing the most. I'm not doing the most at all. That's very low. What that kid did, all that kid needed to do was just have integrity. Fight. If the kid wants to fight him,
I want to know.
Fight him. Don't be
90 pounds heavier.
Fight. Don't fucking matter. Don't
90
matter.
fucking pounds.
Listen, if he was bigger than you, and you were scared that you got in trouble. You didn't do that either. Right? You didn't do that either. He didn't listen to the kid. Now he said, look, I'm 90 pounds lighter. I need to chill out. Maybe I should just leave this tent. Right? You didn't want to do that. Then fight. Be a fucking man. Fight. It's the most. What Carmelo did was the most bitch cowardly thing you could do.
I want to know everything. I want to know.
So even if we're gonna say that, let's say that though, the difference is whether it's cowardice or not. There's a. Can you hear me? Do I hear? Okay. All right. So there's a range of responses that anybody could take. Jimmy, I agree with you. I agree that we could call him cowardice, we could call him a pussy, we could call him whatever, but that does not implicate him and say that he's a murderer because he was aggressed upon. Ultimately, we have to figure out who the right and wrongness is, and if we go with all the subjectivity of what the unjust system is going to do, especially what we already know that they and how they treat black men specifically with sentencing and in this country. Okay, I don't give a shit what the law is going to say. I already know this kid fucking lost. It's not about hold on, Red Rum, can you shut the fuck up? You said you don't talk a lot, and I gotta be honest. Honestly, it's better when you don't talk. It's better when you don't talk, because there's a reality of what actually is happening. Me not saying it isn't gonna change that. There is not enough.
Come on, Mima, get back to it.
Tell him to shut the fuck up. Can you unmod this bitch and put him in the goo? He's fucking just being annoying. Because you're fucking annoying. You're annoying. I had a fight with you for hours yesterday to just stop interrupting me. You just want to continue to interrupt. No, it's annoying. It's fucking annoying. You can't have a conversation because he's fucking tyrannizing. Because he's tyrannizing the entire fucking stage. Everybody else can have a peaceful conversation. Well, just hold on, Stilgar. It's the case right now. But the fact is, I understand that. I understand that. But the fact is, Stilgar, it's not blood sugar, it'll be blood pressure. Okay.
No, that is your blood sugar. You're hypoglycemic. You're tripping out.
No, my blood sugar is great. I have a 4.5 A1C.
All right.
But
focus on.
okay, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is we could say that he's cowardice. We could say whatever. There's a range of responses that he could have taken. But the one thing that we cannot say is that he's morally culpable as a defender. He was in a defense position. He was not the aggressor. And if there's any argument, because I've not heard a good argument in any case, a reasonable and rational argument to remove the onus and the responsibility of how from the aggressor onto the person who was wronged.
All right. So here, I request someone to get out of my car, and then they grab at their knife. Who's
different? That's your authority. You have the authority.
So authority. Okay, so I'm under my team's tent. My team. My team paid for this tent. This is my team's area. I tell this person, hey, can you leave my team's tent? They grab at their knife. Who's the aggressor?
Why even bother sharing? Okay, well, you're wrong about a few things. The kid didn't have any authority.
I'm a part of this team.
That's where we're going wrong with thinking.
I'm a part of this team.
But you don't have any authority. So what
it doesn't even need to go to the authority to ask him to leave that
one of the authorities to have him move. Hey, he shouldn't be here, blah, blah, blah.
That doesn't matter here. So,
if you're in the commission of committing a felony, you don't get to self-defend.
Yeah, like, look.
The dude was carrying a weapon.
Stilgar, we're in the beginning of it, not at the end of it.
Yeah, but let's not even focus on the weapon.
He's carrying a weapon on school property.
Let's not focus on the weapon here. Let's say white kid sees a stranger. Probably it's gut feeling this could be a threat. I don't trust him. I don't know him. Maybe he looks funny. Who knows? And I request, hey man, can you leave our space? And then this kid gets upset and grabs at his knife. The white kid is the aggressor. That's what you guys are arguing here. That the white kid is the aggressor. How do you know he said,
hey man, can you leave our space? And he didn't just go up and say, get the fuck out of here.
I'm sure it started as a request and the black kid refused to fucking acknowledge or listen. And it escalated from there.
With the witnesses.
And it escalated from there.
Listen to the police report and go from there.
So it doesn't, Jimmy, it doesn't matter, right? We're talking about this is, first of all, it's public property. And if you're going to say, oh, it's part of his school's team, so it's his team's tent, right? You're still, that's not, he's not the responsible part. Hold on, just wait, just hear me out. It comes down to private property, and it's public property, right? And it's the public property of the school, right? So that's going to get into a whole new nuance of discussion, and it's never going to come down to being private property. You're not going to say, because if the kid, he's 17, and you could say, oh, he owns a 10, but would you say the same thing if they were 10, and it was the same thing, the same situation, or if they were 5, right? No. The reason is because, hold on.
A 10-year-old staff.
Hold on. I'm just, right, hold on, fourth. Right, no, but what I'm saying is we don't have to use a stabbing situation. We could say the same thing if one child went up to the other and said, get out of the tent. It's still the same circumstance with age. You understand what I'm saying? Follow the logic. Hold on. Please. I forget what I'm going to fucking say. And it's so crazy. Everybody tells me I don't complete sentences and I ramble because I never get to fucking get any shit out that I want to get out. The point is listen, if anyone's responsible, it's the schools that are responsible. They're children. They're not legal adults. We entrust them when we hand our children over. Hold on. When we entrust the school, that's what we're doing. We're handing our children. Fuck you guys. I'm done. You guys. Do you know what? This is the way you guys. This is how you guys want to act, and this is why I can't be here. I have to go to rooms where there are actual civil people, so we can have a discussion.
Go ahead, people. Come on, y'all stop interrupting. You see how y'all made it leave, bro? Like, y'all gotta learn how to control your suck muscles, bro.
I'm trying to have a discussion. They've been talking forever.
Yeah, man, y'all gotta learn how to control your suck muscles. All that dang back talking and Hi. Nah, someone know what he did. Welcome to Colorado.
What you guys are doing right now is...
You mad because your white girl ain't gonna pat you on the head. You'll be alright.
Some more they make me money. Some more they chase their...
What you guys are getting into right now is persons having a...
Red Ron was abusing people, bro.
Comparing this situation...
That shit's crazy, bro.
Comparing this situation to asking someone to leave your property or get out of your car is not the same thing, because persons having authority in that particular situation over their own property.
Can I adjust the analogy here? I'll adjust the analogy.
Sure.
We're both on public property.
Yep.
Get away from my personal space. You're too close proximity.
But he wasn't on the team.
So who's the aggressor?
Well, hang on, Don. It's a thought experiment.
If I say, hey, you're in very close proximity to me, I don't feel safe. Can you please get away from my personal space? You're too close to me right now. Or you're in close proximity of the people that I love and care about. You're a stranger. Please move from us. And then your reaction is to put your hand in your bag and grab a knife. Who's the aggressor?
The aggressor is the person reaching into the bag.
Absolutely, that's very logical. That's what the black kid did.
He's reacting. He's reacting.
But the problem is he's on school. He's on school property with a weapon. Okay.
Yep. That doesn't make a difference.
It does. Listen, I'll explain why. You cannot use a firearm. You cannot use a firearm.
I'm talking about. One second.
Okay, I won't explain that.
No. Let's stay with.
Let's still go explain it.
No, because he's changing it. He isn't changing the same example. Jimmy was given. Jimmy gave a totally different example, and you're talking. Are y'all serious right now?
You don't know what example.
You didn't hear the example what Jimmy gave?
You don't know what example I'm giving because I didn't give it.
I know you didn't agree with Jimmy, and I'm disagreeing with him.
Nathan, what example did I give?
You don't get that?
Nathan, what example did I give? Nathan, what example
Jimmy gave an example, and you agreed with it. I'm disagreeing with you agreeing with Jimmy's example, and you bringing up the whole. You don't get what's going on right now, still, girl?
Oh, this is so dumb.
This is terrible.
He's doing the banana man thing.
Example. You don't even know what it is.
No, the problem,
Okay. Let me break it down for the dum-dums inside the room. So Jimmy gave an example of him with his family, and he told this guy to leave the area, and the guy pulled out a weapon, right?
Yep.
And Stilgar said the guy who pulled out the weapon is is the aggressor. I disagree with that.
Why?
And as soon as he say, okay, let me explain. He was in the school grounds and he had a weapon at school. No, I'm talking about Jimmy's example.
Even in Jimmy's example, both of these individuals are in a public place. Both of these individuals are in a public place, and they have the same level of authority to be there in the eyes of the law. In the eyes of the law.
So tell us why you
Whether
disagree,
you're in a
Nathan.
tent, or whether you're in an assigned seat, or whether any of those things, that's a policy problem on that particular geography. You both have the same right to be there. The only thing that the law is going to say in that regard is the person who feels uncomfortable has the right to leave.
That's my point.
No, wait.
Like the person who tells me, the person.
Okay, I'm glad you
just say this. The person who comes to me
next.
No, the person who can. Well, let me just break it down like I disagree. The person who comes up to me and tells me to leave is the aggressor. Me reacting to the aggressor doesn't make me the aggressor. I didn't just pull out a knife for no reason.
And you're wrong.
The primary tool of self-defense, if the self-defense claim is to be made here in this particular scenario,
is you just listen closely, right? The reason why Nathan is wrong is because the request is a reasonable request, right?
No, it was reasonable.
Jimmy just like.
Wait, are we going to get him on the road from us point though? Are we going to get him on?
No, we're not. No, we're not. In Jimmy's example, right, he came respectfully to Stilgar and made a request. At this point, Stilgar can decline. Well, just in the example, Stilgar he can decline the request, or he could grant it, right? Because it's done in a respectful, reasonable manner. Now, if Jimmy would have went to Stilgar and said, "Hey, you cracker, right? He's provoking a response from Stilgar.
That would be fighting words. Fighting words. That's how the law addresses that. Yeah.
Don, he said the public place. This is not the cars.
Look.
Let's get this through. That's why the issue was wrong.
The issue here, right? If they're making a self-defense claim, the primary item used in that self-defense is the knife. If, by the very nature of you possessing an object, is creating a felony, which in this case it certainly was, you're not allowed to have weapons on school property, whether you're a juvenile or not. Unless you're law enforcement, you're not allowed to have weapons on school property. It's not an option. It's a federal law. So this doesn't even change state by state. By the very nature of this individual having a knife on school property, he's already precluding himself from a self-defense case. If I'm at a post office, a federal post office, and I have my concealed carry firearm, and somebody comes in and robs that post office, and I shoot them, I can be held legally liable because I'm not supposed to have my gun there in the first place.
Can I sort of point out the quagmire in this entire circumstance? Because we have, in my example, it's sort of this. We talk about one aspect of this interaction, but there's a private property aspect of this that isn't discussed enough, and it's the tent itself, right? And so here you have individuals,
former CIA Director John Brennan,
where they stand is tied to the property that they set up themselves so that they can utilize. This boy is also utilizing their property. They don't want this boy around them, right? They don't want this boy.
That doesn't qualify as private property, though.
But it's their property. It's their tent.
Well, right. If you would have picked up the tent, hang on.
Their tent.
You'd be correct if you would have picked up the tent and walked off with it.
That's the issue. The issue is the tent was set up and they're utilizing the tent. During the track meet, it's their tent. And where they stand is tied to where that tent was set up.
That doesn't meet the legal.
That's the private property.
Hang on.
This boy was accessing their property. See, this is how it all starts. This is why they was requesting. That's why he was requesting this guy to leave. It's like my proximity is my proximity is dictated. My proximity to this tent is like I need to be using this tent. It's raining. I heard it was raining.
No.
I heard it was pouring rain.
By that implication, what you're supposing is that if I go and set up in a flea market and I put up a tent and people come in my tent
to purchase my goods at my flea market.
No, it's not the same.
You're not selling anything. Let me land. Okay, I'm not selling anything. Fine, I'm not selling anything. I go out to a public park. I go into a public park and I erect an easy up for my wife and I to sit in the shade under. And you enter that. And I ask you to leave, and you refuse to leave, and I shoot and kill you. You're not my domicile.
The white boy didn't kill anybody. That's the thing. You're explaining it the other way around.
Jimmy.
So it's the person that intruded is the shooter.
But again, let me boil this down. Let me boil this down into the simplest terms. Erecting a tent on, in this case, it is private property, but it's publicly accessible private property.
It doesn't matter whether it's public. Your parked vehicle is publicly accessible. It doesn't mean it's not yours.
Don't stop.
Yes, it's public. Your parked car.
I'm not making the public accessible. No. You're confusing what I'm hinging my argument on. I'm not hinging my argument on the nature of the property. What I'm saying is, by erecting a tent in this place, that gives you no additional ownership of that space.
It's not about the
If that were the case, every time I pull an umbrella out, somebody standing on that under that umbrella could be confused and is aggressing upon me. That's never going to fly in the court.
I disagree with Stilgar.
Jimmy, that's never going to fly in the court. That's never going to.
Hey, hold on, real quick, Jimmy.
That's never going to fly.
So, what do you think about the extension of school grounds? So each tent has a name on it. One's Memorial High School, one's Centennial High School, right? So each tent is designated, and it is an extension of school grounds. Could this be considered, this tent is this high school, that tent is that high school?
No.
This is specific for Texas?
No.
It was raining, for Christ.
Yeah, they had 12 tents.
That means nothing, dog.
They had 12 tents.
He still could have went to his own school's tent. Why is he not going to his own school's tent?
They had 12 tents.
Closest to the gate.
Where's the rest of
the most convenient and all?
Teammates in their team.
Ford, you can make that argument as far as like time, place, and manner as to whether he was like going out of his way to go into a place to aggress upon somebody, but that doesn't make it like defendable property. That's not defensible property as a result of erecting a tent. That's just not how that works.
No, I think that because the designation, because you just used this, you said on school grounds, federal law, and then when you look up Texas and how, because this is an actual like a public stadium, right? So it doesn't belong to an individual school, but because there's 12 different schools there, and it's a school district sanctioned event, each designated tent goes to a high school, and for that there's private property that is within the parameters of the tent. So we're all on the same team here in Chillism. We have all of our devices or whatever the hell we have out here on the bleachers, and that's what's here, and that's what we're protecting from people that are not supposed to be here from running through our stuff.
Find me one piece of case law that would establish that as protectable like area property. That's
your backpacks and everything.
No. I'm talking about by placing a bunch of objects in an area doesn't make it your area. You're still as much of a visitor. You're still as much of a visitor to that geography as anybody else. Look, if somebody picks your assigned seat in a stadium, you bought that ticket by the stadium jurisdiction, by policy and procedure, and by their demand to trespass you or not trespass you, you're entitled to that seat. By the laws of the state, you're not legally entitled to that seat. You're in a place where you're just as legally justified as anybody else.
Yeah, still going.
Somebody stole my seat at the hockey game, so I shot him.
What's the nature?
No, you're wrong.
No,
somebody go move that person. Somebody go move that person, right?
You have a thing. The thing is yours.
Hold on, somebody will move that person, right? Like, let's work with this analogy, just real quick. Somebody at the hockey game would go move that person, right?
Yes, but they would remove that person by authority of policy and by a lack of adherence to that policy.
All right.
I'll explain.
Wait.
Hold on. No.
Go to a Memorial High. Come on, man.
Hang on.
Bro, we're using your analogy.
Samoa, You cannot funnel my position into your
I don't know,
vacuum.
I know.
Allow me to explain. No, because here's the problem. Here's the problem. I'm not going to be allowed to express my position in its totality, and then you're gonna bastardize it, and that's the problem. Just let me land. Just let me land. You don't understand what my position is. Let me land. I haven't finished the thing I was trying to say.
Come on, man.
You see, this is the problem. No, you want to control the pace of the conversation. You're not going to allow me to clarify my position.
Right, the authority at the hockey game can remove.
Okay, let him finish. I have some questions for him.
Yeah, go ahead and finish. Go ahead.
You're not breaking any laws by sitting in an unassigned seat in a stadium. You're only breaking a law if that facility says, sir, it is our policy that you must sit in your assigned seat. And if you refuse to sit in our assigned seat, we'll have to ask you to leave. And if you don't leave, you're then thusly trespassing and breaking the law. You're mixing up policy and procedure of a private property with legalities in a particular area. I'm legally allowed to carry my firearm in the state of Pennsylvania. If I walk into Target and Target says you can't have your gun here, you have to leave, I have to leave or I'm trespassing.
No,
that's differentiation.
Samoa, would you allow me?
I asked the question to AI.
Samoa, would you allow me to ask Stilgar?
Considered private property. Hey guys, I typed this question just for AI. Just gonna mention it. Is it 10?
Yeah, Stilgar. I'm going to ask you a couple questions just to get clarity here. All right?
Well, I'm going to go right after because I'm going to catch him.
So do you believe that the tent that says Memorial High School was for Memorial High School?
I would say it's tantamount to assigned seating to the arena. That's why I made the analogy. It's assigned seating.
But do you believe
the tent belongs to them?
So do you? So okay, fine. That's question one. Question two: in an event where it's raining a lot, which it was, would you then presume that them sitting under the tent during the rain would be them using their tent?
Certainly.
Yes. All right. So we've established that the Memorial High School tent was for the Memorial High School team, right? And that them sitting under their tent was them using their tent. Now, if a stranger who is not a part of Memorial High School then sits under that same tent, would you then say that that stranger is also using their tent?
Sure.
All right, here. All right. We've established a line of logic here.
Okay.
So now the stranger that is not a part of Memorial High School is now using something that isn't his. Would you now agree that that is true?
Yes, and I think I see where you're going with this. I don't want to interrupt you.
All right.
I'll get out of your way, but I'd like a chance to clarify on some of these questions, because some of these questions might be lacking in some necessary nuance.
So therefore, the people that are a part of Memorial High School's team using their tent would be well within their right to request this individual to not use their tent. Would that be true?
They're within their right to request, but they don't have any power to enforce said request.
Oh my goodness.
And also consider they're minors. If there was, it should have been an adult that was
No, just hold on.
minors.
So we're almost there.
No, let them cook.
Did you have anything else, Jimmy?
So you believe that it is their tent. You believe that they are in their right to request, but they're not in their right to enforce.
Well,
okay.
Well, they can enforce it, but only in one way, and that's to disassemble or remove the tent.
And so they are forced to go elsewhere with their tent and hope that this stranger doesn't follow them.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is where I disagree.
From a legal perspective, this is certainly true.
Using the word legal. So just real quick. So we know that
legal is going to be the main crux of this issue.
All right, cool. All right, so in your hockey example, the people that are the authority, policies, whatever, they have the authority or they have the ability to ask this person who's sitting in your seat to be removed. Okay, so each tent is a representation of each individual school. So that individual tent by the same logic, the school, Memorial High School, has the ability to, or the authority to ask anybody that's underneath their tent to move.
No. That's where it goes wrong, and I'll explain why.
Well, let me just show you, like, so if you look this up in Texas, the reasons why these high schools, there's 12 of them, right? And this is a stadium that's not, it doesn't belong to any of the high schools or whatever. It's just used or whatever.
Who does it belong to? It's got to belong to some district or something, right?
It belongs to the city. Yeah, it's to the city.
So legally, that's public property.
No. So just real quick. So if you look at school property, like there's a designation that they call an extension. Whenever schools or the school district rents a stadium or whatever this is, it's underneath this extension of school grounds. And this is the law that everything that is school grounds, this here, because it's sanctioned by the school, is school grounds. It's an extension of Memorial High School. This is an extension of Centennial High School.
Damn, Simone, you still talking about this shit?
All right, so, do you agree with that or disagree with that, Stilgar?
I would probably disagree with that in the bounds of the law. I think so.
Well, the law recognizes this. Like, that's why it's a no-gun zone, even though it's a public area, because it is a sanctioned.
Because it's a school event.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't know that boils down to the specular. I don't know that you can boil that down to the specular level of individual tents belong to individual schools. I don't think that's how that works. And even if that were the case, this
is an extension of school grounds.
No, I hear you. But I believe that would refer to the stadium in its entirety, not down to individual tents. You can't say that he is trespassing on that school by extension by being in that particular school's tent when he's on this larger property. I don't think the law is going to support.
No, I'm saying each individual school is going to have the authority, just like the hockey place, to ask people that are sitting where they don't belong to move.
Authorities from the school. Sure.
Yes. All right. So the authority from the school doesn't have to go somewhere else.
If there's 4 or 5 schools there, the principals, maybe teachers, there might be staff. Yeah, there might be bounds within the law to suggest that they would have the authority to ask him to leave, potentially.
Oh, so they don't have to pick up their tent and move it, right?
Well, no, because I don't. The thing is I think that would represent the stadium as a whole. I don't think you can get down to the specular level of the tent.
Stilgar, you can't speak about the stadium as a whole because schools are attached to certain districts, and districts are attached to a certain group of taxpayers. Full stop. And so when we're talking about this one high school, we're talking about this one community that paid for that tent. That's why it's private property.
Well, right, but
it's their shit.
A similar analogy to this would be like if you were to rent a wedding venue, you are in control of that wedding venue. You have established yourself as having some level of authority on kicking somebody out of the wedding. It's not your private property, but you've rented it. It's a private party. You can decide to preclude people if you wish. Right? I don't think you can boil that down to individual tents. I don't think you can say, hey, this is my wedding venue. You're allowed to be here. I don't have the authority to ask you to leave, but I can't ask you to leave my table.
Yeah, but we're not talking about a venue per se. We're talking about private property and the usage of it. This stranger was using your shit. So what's more analogous is somebody takes your phone and starts making a phone call.
I see
your parents bought you.
Let me clarify.
They took your phone and started making phone calls.
No, that's not the same thing.
That's the best analogy. No, it's literally the best analogy. You didn't pay for it.
No, it's not. It's not.
Your parents bought it for you, just like your parents bought paid those property taxes to fund your school for your school to buy these supplies. So, like,
Jimmy, I want to make sure we're not making the same fatal mistake that's made in this room quite often. I believe that you're mistaking my disagreement with you as a misunderstanding of your premise. I understand your premise that I believe I can steel man it, but I believe I'm disagreeing with your premise because I think it's fundamentally flawed in this hyper-specular, zoomed-in division of whose property is what property. He didn't pick up the tent and move it. He didn't relocate the tent. He didn't change the position of the tent. He's just standing underneath it, and I don't believe the law is going to support that then is tantamount to him essentially trespassing.
That is the definition of using a tent. That's what you do with
you coming up
guys,
the
area.
area.
The great point is that
Hey guys, isn't those the guy who records the rooms? Like, was that the guy you were talking about?
Yeah, kick that faggot out.
Dean is not.
If you don't want to be recorded.
Before we do that, Dean wanted to say something earlier, and he never got a chance to say it.
Yeah.
That was on Dean.
Yeah, I was just saying that even if let's say it is private property, I think the greater point is that he's a minor, and if it was the school's tent, it's up to an adult to enforce it or a staff member, not some student minor to take it in his own hands to kick somebody out. So I think that he was in the wrong for doing that, trying to bully this kid on a rainy or pouring day out of this tent. But let's just say it is considered private property and a public stadium, the school's tent. It's not the kid's position to do that. It's for a responsible adult, a staff member, a teacher, or a coach, whomever, but not for the kid to enforce it himself.
Also, if there was
Nathan,
anyone else under those
check your
tents,
messages, Nathan.
if there was anyone else under those tents that did not belong to the school, like under the wrong tents, your argument goes out the window. Another thing, you had to make sure everybody belonged under those tents.
Damn, they finally kicked me. So that just means I'm going to have to go back in on another account because we'll have to keep the pressure up. If I can even find it.
Okay. And they knew he didn't belong. So Austin went over and told him, yo, you gotta go. Alright, Austin's not the fucking police. He's not a dog. He's not a booster member. He's not anything. He went over there and like, yo, you gotta go. Pretty much like, yo, get him out of here. And when he didn't want to go out in the rain, he refused to go out in the rain. Remember, he wasn't looking for a confrontation. The kid approached him. That's when he actually, pushed him and assaulted him. That's the first time. And the kid said to him, push me and see what happened. Remember, guys, he didn't. They got the police report, and this is what got me. The police report. The Austin's friend is Austin's friend. Said they argued back and forth, and then the guy said, "Push me."
This is even better than chillism. It's even stupider.
Because I didn't read the police report. Was that Anthony or was that?
No. Austin's friend said that Austin and Carmelo exchanged words, and then only thing the friend said on the police report was that Anthony said, "Push me and see what happened." He didn't tell him what Austin said. He didn't, and that leads me to believe that if Austin went over there in a nice way and Austin would have said, Austin went over there and said, "Hey, can you please leave?" And he said, "Fuck out of here, touch me, see what happened." That's what I would say. Like, yo, he was nice. There was no cause for this. But all he said is they exchanged words, and then all of a sudden the guy said, "Push me and see what happened." And so Austin pushed him. Okay? And then they exchanged words some more, and then he grabbed his bag, and he went to reach in his bag, and none of us thought he had a weapon. So he said none of us thought he had a weapon. It implies that there was more people involved. None of us thought that he had a weapon. It's not like they all sat back and Austin was by himself. None of us thought, guys, if anyone can find that police report, is online and read it. None of us thought he had a weapon.
That means he had an audience.
No, more than that audience. He had co-conspirators. More people that's complicit. None of us thought he had a weapon. Okay? And everybody like, what the fuck? He don't got nothing. And so then Austin said him exchange words again. And then he said, punch me and see what happened. Now, Austin already pushed him, obviously, if Austin, like, I'll push your ass out of here. Whatever. And now, when he grabbed him up, why? He, like, yoked him up like that.
Let's discuss that more. Was he within the right to kick somebody off the tent, or should that be the responsibility of an adult who manages the tent?
Yeah, I think he falls within his rights to request. So
even an adult doesn't have authority.
No, he can request, but to enforce. Requesting is one thing, but to enforce is a different thing.
Well, the point that I'm at is that he made a request, like a reasonable request. But the greater point is
then he tried to enforce it.
Enforce
Was his request reasonable? You don't want his request first.
Yes, because I want to start at the very beginning of the interaction with what the independent witnesses have said. Do you believe that it was a reasonable request?
It's dependent
Are you
on how
familiar
he
with it?
Samoa, can I ask you a clarifying question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you
Music
making
emojis.
a moral argument or a legal one?
It doesn't matter, just for conversation.
No, it does matter. There's a very strong distinction between the two. Things can be considered immoral or
Well,
socially
I'm trying to see
unacceptable.
how these guys are viewing it. Like, I'm making a legal one.
Okay, so the legal argument would just be person having authority, and a 17-year-old who's a participant and a visitor viewing this doesn't have any more authority than the person who is potentially trespassing. Even if he isn't being trespassing, let's concede that by nature of being under the tent, he is the extension of that particular school and he is trespassing. Someone who isn't a representative of this property doesn't have the right to ask him to leave.
No, I think the problem here is that you're adding certain things to this. So we just said 17-year-olds, right? So we can say that
even adults would be qualified as persons having authority if they don't know.
You're having a different discussion, bro. I was trying to help this guy out by just carrying on with his conversation with minors and what we expect from them. 17-year-olds know this is my designated area, so it's a reasonable request for me to say, hey man, your tent's over there. Do you mind if you move your stuff over there so we can have?
So you're actually making a moral argument, but calling it a legal one. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Wait, hold on real quick. The reason why.
No,
hold on.
he said.
Hold on. Just hold on.
Samoa.
But it's a hypothetical, Don. He's making a
Fucking
hypothetical.
weirdo.
Hey,
The legal.
how long are you gonna talk about this, man? It's been a couple
Because
hours.
think of however long I want to talk. What's the problem, bro?
Because you're gonna
You're
waste
saying
our
the same
time.
shit
Look at
that you
it.
said
Bring
like
up a kid to a party that isn't his and wants to change the music.
Yeah, real quick question.
Hey, shut your bitch ass up.
Answer your question.
Fucking faggot.
Faggot boy.
Come on, bro.
Fucking karate dance class white belt wannabe.
All right, so the word
Break your
reasonable,
fucking leg.
and the reason why it's a legal question, the word reasonable happens to be in the self-defense statute, right? The word reasonable, how a reasonable person would perceive this situation. So yes, this is the reason why I'm using the word reasonable.
Yeah,
So
the
if he makes
reasonable person is a
Come on,
very strongly held legal principle, but the reasonable person doctrine doesn't apply in this particular scenario the way you're using it. You're kind of
all right, when you.
Oh my God! Really just
Hey, bro, do you know what I'm saying, Silver?
I do know what you're saying. I do know what you're saying. I think I can
Alright, what
steel
am I
man your
saying,
position
Silver?
and I can explain where you're going wrong.
I agree with Stilgar.
Yeah, go ahead, tell me.
You're making a
So,
moral assessment.
Your position is that this particular individual who was asking him to leave the tent was doing so fairly and reasonably. He wasn't being unnecessarily aggressive towards him. He didn't just immediately kick him in the dick and throw him out of the tent. He requested that he leave the space that he was occupying because he was unwelcome by the other people occupying that space. I understand that completely. Where are you with you? Sorry, let me stop there. Do you agree that I'm appropriately representing your perspective?
No.
So why don't you tell me what I'm missing?
All right, what I'm asking this gentleman here for a 17-year-old, if you believe it to be reasonable as a request, what would be the provoking action in the sequence of events that you would say this is what started it all?
Okay, so.
All right, so if there's a reasonable request, like if you declare this is a reasonable request, or if you don't declare it as a reasonable request, somewhere along the lines, this is where it starts right here.
You can make a reasonable request that you don't have the authority to enforce.
Bro.
I thought he was asking me. I yielded, calm down for 3 people. Doesn't make it.
Yeah, so one, I don't think it was reasonable request. I think that the moral thing to do would be to say, hey, it's raining outside, it's pouring outside. Actually, it wasn't just drizzle, it was pouring outside. Let this kid have a
place to sit, to be protected from the rain, number one. Number two, let's say even if we consider a reasonable request, it's not within this person, the deceased, authority, in my understanding, to enforce that request. That's up to school administrators, whoever is responsible. It's not those responsibility of him. He's not an enforcer. He's a minor.
All right, real quick question. All right, so then, do you think this is a reasonable response? A person says, "Hey, man, your tent's right over there. This is for us. Do you mind if you go to your tent?" And your response is to put your hand in the bag and say, "Touch me, and you'll see what happens."
No, of course not.
That's a reasonable response?
Of course not.
No,
wait, hold on.
But there's some more that led up to that. There's more that led up to that. And I think
no, that's it.
You
no,
don't.
No, that's not. That's simply not it.
Bro, that's all we got.
You're making light of what.
Don, relax, man.
Don, everybody understands that we don't know precisely what was said, and that's the facts of the case that'll have to slowly but surely come out. But the fact of the matter is we're using that as a potential thought experiment. It's a presupposition we acknowledge.
Obviously, it was more than that, or he wouldn't.
Well, was it then, Don?
It's not obvious, Don. Don, nothing's obvious. Nothing's obvious.
What is it, Don?
You can't take anything that's assumed. You can't take anything that's assumed, Don.
It might have been the tone of his voice. Might have been.
Might have been that.
So
really? But you're saying it might have been obvious.
He's not innocent.
It was obvious, but it might have.
I'm not arguing anything, Ray. All I want to do is try to test this dude, or just try to see where he's coming from, because he's taking a position that the request was not reasonable. And the reason why